I think the narcissistic individual, the biggest crime they commit is against themselves. Quite often they find the individual, the caretaker, the individual who will support the all about me, the one-way street, the grandness of me. They will support that in this individual, and the codependent person loses who they are by supporting this grandiose personality. And what happens is the grandiose narcissistic individual, they are the big loser of it all, because they ultimately end up very alone, always alone, because they are always ultimately right. And even if, and what's so amazing is that they cannot see it at all, and you cannot describe it to them. There's no way you can describe it to them. It has got to be a dawning deep within them that, oh my God, I'm creating a life where I am the center of everything, and yet I have nothing. Does that make sense? I mean, I think it's just amazing.
Well, yeah. The likelihood of that happening, unfortunately, is pretty slim, because once again, everybody's got ego and everybody's got all this stuff working, but when you actually have a person who you would actually define as being narcissistic, now you've got an extreme person. They didn't get that way overnight. It probably started in childhood, maybe with a doting mother or whatever.
Yeah.
Somebody who followed them around, and whenever they got out of sorts and cantankerous or whatever, this person would follow them around, try to make things better. And often what happens is this child gets very belligerent with the parent, and the parent allows that to be.
That's right.
Allows them to have them, indulges them in their moods and so forth, and yet continually tries to placate, mediate, make things better, not make waves. Okay, well let me do this, and they got used to that, and then they grew up and they didn't have it anymore, and so and they would get in a relationship and they would start to treat this person that way, and the person would say, "Forget you, I'm out of here." But then finally they meet somebody who doesn't say, "Forget you, I'm out of here." They play the other role, and then all of a sudden, now this person, when they were a child, they were a participant in the social system of the family. Now they're the emperor.
Yeah.
The emperor of the home, of the family. Now they can really make it revolve around themselves.
The whole family.
The whole family.
Yeah.
The children, helpless children growing up and so forth, they can make the whole thing about them.
Yes.
And make a whole family of objects surrounding me like a little fiefdom.
Faceless, invisible objects that have no life of their own.
So now, in response to what you were saying, what's the likelihood that somebody who's gone that far is going to one day just wake up and say, "Oh, I see what I'm doing. I see the error of my ways. I see how what I'm doing is robbing me of love, and I'm going to just change."
Yeah.
What's the likelihood? Very little. Now, some people do, and usually those that do so because of some major catastrophe, some major problem, like they're diagnosed with a terminal illness, some horrible thing befalls them. They lose their family, through some catastrophe that happens. The house burns down and everybody's killed, something like that. And then all of a sudden they have a wake-up call. And it takes a lot to wake somebody like that up, but you never know. Now, so what can an individual do who lives in a home like that? Well, first of all, they got to make a choice.
Yeah.
I'm going to stay or I'm going to go.
That's huge.
Okay.
Yeah.
And if I'm going to stay, I got to focus on me. It takes two to tango, so there's a codependent relationship. But now we don't form a strategy to try to change the other person. We form a strategy to try to help me to grow and to start observing my own behavior and to see what I'm doing. And when I start seeing all the things that I'm doing that just don't make any sense anymore, I start changing and restoring my own wholeness as a person. Now, of course, you run the risk of, even in that, You from the other person's point of view, you're sabotaging their fiefdom.
Yeah.
This is like conspiracy.
Yeah.
You know, this is mutiny.
Right.
Because you're not acting the way you did before.
And it's not all about me anymore.
It's not all about me anymore.
This is not right.
Yeah.
You're not supposed to be in this picture at all.
Right. And then you have to play it by ear, because every day you make a choice. Even though yesterday you made a choice and said, I'm staying, I'm committed to this relationship, I'm going to make it work. Tomorrow, you either recommit or you re-examine, and you have to make these decisions.
Well, I think the codependent person, the one who's feeding this bloated sense of self person, I think that they can love the person very much. You know, I'm just imagining this.
Yes.
But I think they can love the person very much, and they can see the loss there.
Yeah.
They can see, my God, I could have loved you completely. We
Sure.
could have loved one another completely.
Yeah.
And yet, there's no way to get in. There's no way to get in.
Yeah.
Because it's all about you. There's no room for anyone else. My God. And if a person is intelligent enough to see this, and emotionally intelligent enough, I'll add, to see this, and at the same time, you know, it takes a very special person to change themselves and yet stay with this situation at the same time.
Right.
I don't know if that's even possible.
Yeah.
For a person to say, I'm going to be stronger, I'm going to stand my ground, it's not all about you, I got some light here that's going to shine, you're not going to blank me out anymore.
Right.
Just to do that, and then the narcissistic person is going to say, no, wait a minute, and they're going to get bigger,
Right.
their blowfish is going to get bigger, and it's just overwhelming.
Right.
To penetrate that, to pop that over-bloated sense of self, you know, and that is something that a very strong and wise and determined, and an individual who would have a lot of self-esteem and a lot of individuality in order to cope with that and to change it in any way.
Yeah.
Not necessarily trying to change them, but change themselves to be stronger, to stand up against this individual and
Sure.
say, thus far and no further. It's not just your way, it's my way too. This is a two-way street. And you know, I give to you and you give to me, that old song, you know, I give to you and you give to me. It's the sign of infinity is so amazing. It goes to you, reciprocates back to me, feeds me. I reciprocate and come back to you and feed you. It's a lovely, lovely symbol. And that's what we're talking about.
Yeah. Well, everything affects everything else within a social system. That's part of chaos theory, systems theory, all that sort of thing. And a home is almost like a closed social system, and every behavior, everything that goes on affects everything else that happens. You know, during the 80s and 90s, we saw tremendous insights into all of this stuff through books like Codependent No More and Women Who Love Too Much, and all these books that were written and a whole movement of understanding codependency and so forth, to help individuals to really start looking at themselves and make choices and so forth. But ultimately, you know, here we are, it's 2009, and many years have gone by, and there's books galore in the bookshelves and the bookstores and Amazon.com. But the books can sit there, but if you don't read the books, and if you don't get it, and if it doesn't affect a change in your behavior and in your thinking, then, you know, in spite of it, you find yourself in a prison. You find yourself locked up, and you only have one life. And when a whole decade goes by and you just allow these situations to continue for a decade, how many decades do you have? And I look back over my life and I look at all the decades, okay, and there have been many decades, okay. You know, I can see that each decade sort of had a phase of what was going on, relationships and, you know, and so forth. And lessons were learned, mistakes were made, and so forth. But you can always look back in retrospect and say, and hopefully without shoulding on yourself, you can do this. You can look and say, if I could have seen this, if I could have really gotten this lesson that I know now, if I had known it then, and could have changed my behavior, what could have happened? Well, of course, that's just the mind imagining.
Yeah.
Whatever is, and the most important thing is, what are you missing right now? that you're not seeing. Okay, but
so awareness.
well, awareness is always everything.
Awareness.
But it's amazing how a whole decade can go by, and if you're not aware, it just slips by, and it's like you go to sleep for 10 years. There it is.
Yeah.